Are you a real estate investor and you're thinking that the best way to make more income is to do Airbnb? You might be thinking, how do I go about getting a loan on an Airbnb property? Well, today we're going to be covering that. I'm Juan Huizar.
And I'm Phoebe Todoroff.
And today we're going to cover how to finance an Airbnb property. Let's get into the interview. Okay, so really popular, and it's been popular for many years now, is how do I finance, or I want to buy a property, and the best way to maximize income is by doing Airbnb. A lot of cities are allowing it. There are restrictions, so be careful anywhere you go. But today we're going to talk to Phoebe about, can someone get a loan on an Airbnb property?
Yes, it wouldn't be considered an Airbnb loan, but it would be a loan on a property that would be considered an investment property. So you would be purchasing it as a rental, and what you choose to do with it after you own it is up to you, subject to city rules and limitations, correct?
Got it. So what you're saying is, like, I can't come to you and say, I'm going to buy this property and it's an Airbnb property and I want you to use the income from the property. Is that possible?
No. So the income from the property that's going to be used in qualifying for a standard loan is going to be based off monthly market rent that the appraiser determines on the appraisal.
Okay. So let me just give an actual real life case scenario. So you all know we're in Long Beach. And so let's just say you were buying a 4-unit building. And in the city of Long Beach, if you have a 4-unit building, they're only going to allow 25%. Only one of those units can receive a permit for Airbnb. Only one of them. And they've been cracking down. I've sold buildings where all 4 of them have Airbnb income coming in. But what Phoebe's saying is that even if you're buying a property in Long Beach and one of them has Airbnb income, and so for some of those who may not be familiar, let's just say that the regular property would rent out for $2,000 a month. It's possible that Airbnb income is more than double that, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. So naturally, of course you want that income, and of course you want that Airbnb. What Phoebe's saying is that, well, even with a permit at the bank level, so the underwriters are told, don't give it Airbnb credit, even though you're realistically receiving the money. They're saying, just give it credit if it was a rental.
Correct.
Okay, so the Airbnb income is not going to help you get the loan, but when you're in possession of the property, it's definitely going to help you make more cash flow.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so Phoebe, if I'm buying a property and let's just say that it's a duplex and I'm going to live in one of them, do I tell you that I'm going to do Airbnb? Do you not want to know? Like, how do we, the buyers, handle that with our lender?
Oh, well, if you're buying it owner occupied and you're moving into one of the units, the second unit's going to be a rental. So whatever you choose to do with the second unit.
So the bank doesn't care.
No, the bank does not care.
So the bank doesn't care. Now, if I disclose to you that I tell you, Phoebe, I'm going to live in that front house with my wife and kids, and we're going to Airbnb the back, that doesn't change anything for you.
Nope.
It doesn't even come into the discussion on should we give the loan to them or not.
Nope.
Got it. Okay. So not a problem if you disclose it to your where you are going to have a problem, and this has nothing to do with the loan, is if you're looking to do this, because more and more the clients that we're talking to, everyone's talking about short-term rental income and they love it. And so we want you to know that from a financing perspective, there's not like a actual Airbnb type loan that's going to help you. Like, that doesn't exist.
Correct.
Unless someone makes it up and they pretend that it exists.
Correct.
But currently, there's no such thing as an Airbnb loan. We wish there was. There's not. And so the banks are okay with giving you the loan so long as that the rental numbers are going to help you. Where we want you to be prudent is do your investigation, is before you buy in a city, call them. Do I need a permit? What's the permitting process? Because what you're going to find is that in some cities, there's a complete ban or all the permits have been met. In the city of Long Beach, when they first came out with the Airbnb permitting process, they limited it at 800. And since then, that may have changed because now everyone's getting permits and it's a pretty easy process. Phoebe, what if someone's trying to buy, so let's just say someone's trying to go into and buy a house and they already own a house, they want to buy another house, and deep down inside, they're going to Airbnb it. Like, how do they handle that from a loan perspective?
That would still be a purchase of a single family residence purchased as an investment property. So if they purchase the property and it is an investment property, again, whatever they choose to do with it after they own it, whether it's a long-term rental, a short-term rental, Airbnb, that's up to the new owners or
Okay.
the buyer's prerogative.
In that scenario, because you're calling it an investment property, it's a single family home that the buyer fully intends to do Airbnb. How much of a down payment are they having to put down on that single family home that they're not going to be living in?
For an investment property, it's going to be 25%.
So 25% in that scenario. Would it change if the buyer says that that's going to be their second home?
Yes, it
Okay.
would change as far as the down payment goes. Then you would not be able to use any rental income to qualify for the loan.
Okay, so here's the thing. You cannot use, okay, so someone could say, I'm going to go into, I'm not going to use Palm Springs as an example. Let's go ahead and use it as an example, and I'll get to it later. Okay, I'm going to go to Palm Springs. We're going to buy a second home. And what's that down payment for a second home?
It's going to be between 10 and 20%.
Okay, so it's less than the 25, so that might be a good option. And we're going to live in it sometimes, Phoebe, and other times we're hoping we could Airbnb it. You're saying that I have the right to do that.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
But what you're saying is we're not going to give you credit for the income that's going to
Correct.
come
You
in.
would need to qualify for the entire payment of the mortgage in addition to your current home where you live as well.
Got it. So there's a couple different options. When you're looking at, if you already own a house and you're looking at either buying a small multifamily where you plan to have one of them get Airbnb income, they're not going to give you credit for the income. But if you're buying a single family house, now you could even buy a house out of state.
Yes.
Right? And then, so you could go to Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, buy a house, and you know you're going to go there a few times throughout the year. But the other times, if the city allows, I could Airbnb it, which is actually a really good idea.
Correct. As long as it's a legitimate second home, you intend to vacation there, you intend to occupy it for a portion of the year. The times that you are not there, yes.
Right.
You own the property and you can do as you see fit.
It almost seems like a no-brainer. It seems like a no. Now make sure you're buying in an area that people actually want to go Airbnb.
Yes,
I mean, if you
correct.
buy in an area that no one wants to go to, then you're out of luck. There's going to be no, because sometimes, listen, this is a tremendous way to acquire another piece of property. I like that it's only 10 to 20% down. And so long as it's in an area that will allow you to have the permit and you're going to have that income, and maybe you only, here's my suggestion, maybe you only do the Airbnb for a couple years to kind of help bring in that income that you need. And ultimately you start spending more time in that property and maybe you decide to stop it, but it's not like a permanent thing. How are the interest rates when we're looking at, in this case, call it a second home? So I'm looking at a second home right now. It's 2024. I'm excited because we get to have this vacation house, take the family, and maybe let my siblings use it. What type of interest rate is that going to look like?
Well, a second home is considered
Riskier?
a secondary primary residence.
Oh,
So
wow.
it has the same interest rates as a primary residence purchase because you intend to occupy it as your secondary primary residence for
I'm going to
a
forget.
certain amount of time.
I'm going to forgive you now if you're going to stop watching and rushing and call Phoebe or a local lender to get a second home loan. So what she's saying is that, hey, there's no difference. There's no difference in that. And then hopefully you're able to receive that income. So that's really, really beneficial. If it was an investment property, because the example I just gave you was it was a second home. Let's just say that we're going back to my first example. You're buying a fourplex in Long Beach. One of them already has the permit. The sale of the property, you get to keep the permit. Or maybe you get to reapply for the permit, but you know you're going to use that income. What's that? Is that a higher interest rate?
Yes, because that would be strictly an investment property.
Okay.
Yes, so you're going to be, wherever rates are for that given day, as an investment property, which is a riskier loan, right?
Okay.
So because you are not going to be occupying it for any part of the year.
Now, it's a riskier loan from the perspective of the bank. We're not saying it's a risky loan for you as an investment.
Right.
We're saying, hey, if the numbers make sense, go ahead and do it. All right, so next I'm going to talk about Palm Springs. And so Palm Springs is in the desert part of California, Southern California, and it's a very popular destination, second home. People go there, they have events, they have weddings, they have parties. It's a great place to go. It's always sunny. And so, but this week in the LA Times, there was an article, and the article goes on to say that the neighbors are getting fed up with Airbnb, right? And we're not surprised. So traditionally, when someone goes into an Airbnb, typically you're vacationing, you're having a good time, you're staying up later, and it's a little bit of a party. Maybe you're drinking more than you normally would. And in Palm Springs specifically, it's made up of so many neighborhoods. What they're trying to do is limit 20% of that neighborhood to have a permit. Now, if you're someone who is watching this and you didn't know this and you're in Palm Springs and you already have a permit, you're in luck because you get to keep it. Now, if you're someone who just bought there a second home, like the example we just gave, and you were going to apply, they're no longer going to give you a permit. And so, very important. One of the things that I warn people about is, okay, I'm all in favor of Airbnb. Okay, I love it. I think it's a great way to offset the cost of owning real estate. It's important that when you're working with us, that we're going to tell you, hey, yes, you could count on that income today in terms of when you're doing the math of, well, hey, how much is it going to cost me? But also have a backup plan. And the backup plan, Phoebe, is what happens if you no longer have that additional income from Airbnb? Because that could get stripped away. And it could get stripped away from a couple different things. So here's my warning. One is that the city could then just come out and ban it. Okay, that could happen. They could cap them like they did in Palm Springs. The other part that we need to be careful of is there's a saying that I like, and it's excess profits creates ruinous competition. Okay, so what that means is everyone else sees you making lots of money. They're going to go buy a second home in that area. Now, all of a sudden, you're competing with all these other Airbnb people, and that premium that you were getting is no longer a premium. So very, very important that when you're looking at an asset, we know and we teach that it's important to keep investing. That's where you're going to create wealth, but also know that don't put all your eggs in one basket thinking that income is going to remain the same, or thinking that it's like a rent and it's going to keep going up. Again, it's possible that maybe 1 month it made you $12,000, but that may be a 1 month scenario. It doesn't mean that you're going to make the rest of your projections on that $12,000 that it's bringing in. So we have to be, it's really important. What has happened in Palm Springs, this article goes on to say, is that people bought these properties. They bought them at the top of the market. They invested additional proceeds to make it better. In one case, someone bought a property for $1.1 million. They put $300,000 into it, so now you're at $1.4 million. And that same property, because they're no longer able to get the permit, they can't sell it at $1 million. So in this case, someone just made this bet in an area where the laws were shifting. It also goes on to say that in Palm Springs specifically, let's just say that I have a permit and I sell the house to Phoebe. That permit does not get transferred over.
In Palm Springs, it does not.
It doesn't. Okay. It doesn't. So this is but the only reason I'm telling you this, because if you're watching this video, there's a lot of information on Airbnb and they make it seem like it's very simple and everyone should do it and it's a no-brainer. And I'm going to say that I'm all for it, but there's a little things that we just need to be cautious about. Don't set all your expectations on the certain amount of income. Things could change. It could go up and down. Also, when it comes to Airbnb properties, the amount of work increases because now you're not just a housing provider, which is, typically when I talk about owning rental properties, it's really hands off because we're just a housing provider. So long as there's heat, there's running water, that's all, and I give you a clean property, that's all I need to do. When you have an Airbnb property, you're essentially in hospitality. So someone may want a softer pillow. Someone may need more towels. You're going to have those types of requests. For some of you watching this, you might say, you know what, I'm going to go with a condo. And so then I have a little warning when it comes to condominiums and any property that's part of what they call a PUD or a planned unit development is if you're looking at a property to buy and you know that you're going to Airbnb, if anything has CCNRs, which are like rules and regulations put on by the developer when they originally built the property, condominiums in certain houses, they're going to have a flat out ban to that. Now, some of them might allow it. It might be a certain percentage, but I'm going to tell you that I would not look at a condominium and think Airbnb.
Correct.
And now not always, you could certainly look at a condominium and think second home.
Correct.
But it's very important, and just know that there's going to be additional layers of protection inside of a condominium or a certain, you could be in a golf community and they're going to say flat out no, even though the city might say yes. And so there's going to be certain municipalities that might control where you live. And so just double check those before you do anything. Phoebe, talk to us about, if you're looking at a second home, it needs to be a place that is considered a second home. Just give us an example of here in California, what might be considered.
Any properties that are close to or on the ocean or on the beach. The local ski resorts, Big Bear, Mammoth, Lake Arrowhead, Palm Springs, as we talked about earlier. The coastal communities, San Diego, Long Beach, San Pedro. I mean, any of the coastal communities. There's a large second home area out in Temecula, wine country.
Sure.
Up in Napa, wine country. So anywhere that would be typical where people would, in essence, go to stay for vacation or time away from home or a weekend getaway. Those are the types of areas that are going to be very conducive to second home financing.
Even with all of those conditions, I still say do it, right? In fact, it's funny. As I'm interviewing Phoebe, a lot of times I learn. So my takeaway is I need to go find a second home. I need to find somewhere that I'm thinking that this would be a place that I would like to take my family. I would like to own real estate there, and maybe in the meantime, offset the cost with the Airbnb. Phoebe, is there anything else that you want to cover when it comes to financing Airbnb properties? Anything that comes to mind?
No, I mean, obviously just the things that you hit on, making sure that it's allowed in the city that you're purchasing and that there is not every house on the street that you want to buy does not run an Airbnb, because then you're going to have too much competition and probably not going to be able to make the kind of money that you think that you're going to be making.
Right. For anyone watching this and is thinking, hey, that second home idea sounds really good. We're going to have Phoebe's information down in the description. Feel free to reach out to her, email or call Phoebe. Again, it doesn't cost you any money, just for a quick question, and she'll give you some guidance and see if it's possible. And again, if you're someone who's thinking this, it doesn't hurt to find out, do I qualify?
Correct.
And in most cases you might, and even if you don't, there might be a process where Phoebe says, you know what, the credit needs to improve. We need to pay off some debt. But all you need is just a little bit of guidance, and then it'll put you in a position where you could go ahead and purchase a property. So that's all for now. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.